What's up, folks? Sean, the Average Angler, and I hope you're ready because we are going to go down the rabbit hole. All right, I did the tube video last week. I got a little criticism for it because I left a lot of stuff out, but that's because that was tube fishing basics. Now, we're going to go a little deeper here. We got a decent response to that, so I wanted to follow it up. Rods, line, rigs, where to fish them and how to fish them, all that kind of stuff, okay? And when might I use these different styles, types, techniques to fish? And we might even go into a little bit of why, okay? One thing I want you to keep in mind and how to think about a tube. Think about a tube as a jig, okay? It's a plastic jig. In most cases, there is an exception, and that's when we're using bait fish type colors. Whole slew of ways to fish those. We're gonna get into all those. Let's start out with the simplest method, which is going to be flipping. The other day I went over some of this. The Reaction Innovations Boom Boom Tube, if you can find them, you're lucky. I've got probably 100 bags of them because they're not made anymore. Okay, it's still in my mind is probably the best tube ever made. As far as what is on the market that's good, worth fishing, is the Strike King. This is the regular, what do they call it? Flipping tube. And it's really the same thing as a Strike King coffee tube. You get 6 in this bag, you get 8 in this bag. Some of the colors a little bit different, that kind of thing. On this, they recommend a size 4/0 hook. Same thing I recommend for this, okay? This is a 5-inch, this is a 4.5. And we're gonna go into why I like these, okay? Because I think it's pretty important. And I'm gonna show you an example of one that's not this way. Okay, you see, number one, on the Boom Boom tube, the tassels are nice and long, okay? There's also lots of them, so it's cut and split really well. This is a secret tube, much shorter, but this is not a flipping tube. And one way to tell is the top up here is going to be solid down to about there. So maybe the first quarter, third of an inch, and this one is just a tube all the way up. Different purposes, okay? Now, let me show you the Strike King. Flipping tubes is an awesome way to catch them, okay? You'll see it's got a little narrower head, but it is solid up there. The reason it's solid is to hold your hook. Again, though, you will see the Boom Boom, much more presence, okay? So depending on where you're at in the country too, you might need to use a little smaller profile tube. And let me just be clear, these work fine, okay? Denny Brower won a Bassmaster event with it. I still like the Boom Boom. Robert Lee won 4 Bassmaster events with it on the California Delta. All right, so flipping. Flipping is very, very effective. I'm going to use the iRod Quercus IQ 764C heavy 3/16 to 3/4 ounce 14 to 20 pound test, okay? It's fast action, but this is what I want to know. Wild card power finesse flipping, okay? So it's a finesse flipping rod. It's not a punch rod. I got 20-pound fluorocarbon on there, okay? There's my rig, okay? You'll see it's pegged. I said flipping. What I really mean is pitching. Okay, there's my 4/0 hook. There's my tungsten weight. Most of the time, I'm going to use a 1/4 ounce. You can go up to a 3/8, you can go down to a 3/16, your choice. Okay, I'm gonna use the Boom Boom. It's the bigger profile. Much like I showed you the other day, go in, turn out. Just like you're rigging any other Texas rig bait, right? But you'll see that that hook goes down to about the end of the tassels, just above it, right where we want it. Get that hook point in there. We're very weedless, okay? I don't want to snug that bead up tight. I want a little bit of movement there, okay? For pulling over wood, through grass, whatever. It just, to me, I don't want that head pegged directly to it. Now, if you're punching, that's a different situation. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about pitching to cover, okay? Where we are going to pitch to cover is essentially the same places you would pitch any other bait to cover, okay? Wood, dock pilings, rock, outcroppings, those kinds of things. Docks, you know, the list can go on and on, pretty much anywhere you like to flip. But what I have found very, very effective in wood, very, very effective in standing trees and lay down trees, okay? Those would be some hot spots, if you will. The Strike King, probably the best available tube I'm aware of right now. Doesn't mean there's not another one. I did go on to Tackle Warehouse and look. Quite honestly, I didn't see anything that I thought was better. All right, so that's flipping, pitching, pretty simple. Year round, pretty much any time you would fish a jig. Hot times for it, the spring, okay? Now, there's one other rig that I will flip in the spring, and you're gonna see this rig come up a few times, and I've never seen anybody else talk about this, and that is a flashy swimmer, okay? Now, I will rig this just like you rig a swim bait to a flashy swimmer. In the springtime, I think the reason it works so well is that blade. And what I'm doing with this in the springtime is pitching it to places either I'm bed fishing and see them, or I can't see, but I believe there's a bed there. Okay, this is just proven to be a very, very effective rig in that situation. All right, we're gonna come back to the flashy swimmer because there's some other things to do with it. And again, I don't see those talked about either. All right, moving on. The tube jig head, which we covered the other day. So there is the tube jig head rigged, okay? That is a little 3.5 inch finesse tube. I will once again put links in the description. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Not in the tube, looks just like that. You can use a dart head, a ball head, as long as you have this hook shank, not hook shank, that throat right there. You need to push this eye up through the bait, okay? If you missed it, you can go back and look at tube fishing basics because I covered it in there. I rigged it on video so you can see it, okay? There you go. That's what it looks like. Okay, there's a couple other ways you can do this if you don't want to go out and buy special heads. You just want to try tube fishing. You don't want to go out and buy special heads. You can always take a regular jig head, a ball jig head. You can even put one on a football head. Okay, like I said, think of it as a, I didn't rig this one the other day. You're just going to rig it up, slide it up there. And this is where this can be a little bit of a chore. There we go, it just slipped up. Now, these don't always stay real well. See, it'll move around on there a little bit, but it's pretty good. As long as you measure the length of the hook will help it stay in place. Now, the advantage to this is you can change a tube really easy, okay? This rig, you're gonna have to cut it off, re-rig the tube, re-tie it on. This snags a little more than this. The plastic around the weight tends to keep it from snagging as much. This will tend to spiral a little more than this tends to go glide to the bottom, okay? Just like a Texas rig. But It just goes to show, very universal. You can fish them pretty much any way you want. And quite honestly, this is how I fished them for years. And it was very effective. I've caught hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of fish on them, okay? You can buy tubes in endless amounts of colors, most likely. The open hook stuff, with the exception of that football head that I showed you, I'm going to fish on an iRod Crusher IA 702 spinning. Okay, it's a medium action spinning rod, 7 foot. You'll see right now I've got a Ned rig on there with dog hair all over my worm. I don't know how that got there, but anyway, Cora, thank you. Open hook spinning rod, unless I'm going up to that football head, and then we're gonna have to hit the fish hard enough to get through that weed guard. You can always cut the weed guard off. This type of head with the double keeper system, this one's not even gonna be in play once that tube's slid all the way up there. Now, if you use a flipping tube, it all comes into play because it's solid, right? At the head. They may stay a little bit better, they may not. So the open water spinning. Okay, the other rig that I might throw on a spinning rod is the Flashy Swimmer. Now, what I might do with this Flashy Swimmer, and really you can get away with throwing it on casting gear, so anytime you can throw it on casting gear, that's what I'm going to do. But you can take that tube and you get bait fish colors on there, and now you can swim it. You can swim it through grass, you can swim it through cover, you can swim it and kill it and let it flutter down to the bottom. This is most likely not going to spiral because the way it's situated back from the head a bit, okay? It might spiral a little bit. It's not going to spiral near as much as some of the others. Very effective, something the fish don't see all the time, and again, something I haven't seen anybody talk about. Where am I going to throw that? Again, grass, docks, okay? Docks come to mind. Throw it up under docks, let that thing flutter down. You got the little extra action of the blade, but you can also do that with an open hook. You can also do it with the rig we are going to talk about next, which is commonly known as a stupid tube. One thing I want to show you, this is a Secret Lures, and Secret Lures also makes the stupid tube rig. Okay, this is the 3/0. This is a 4/0. Just let it be noted, a 3/0 seems to be plenty of hook for anything under 4 inch, 3.7 inches, okay? If I put the 4/0 up there, it's coming way too close to the back of the tassels for me. You get a little extra space with the 3/0. I'm sure most of you have seen the rigging. You take the hook, you're gonna run it up inside, and you want that hook to come out where you're going to have the hook eye. Okay? Get it like so. Pull it in. If you lube it up, it slides a little easier. This one is not sliding because I did not lube it up. Now, when you get the weight up to this point, do not pull it through. You want to rotate. Oop, see, that thing's already starting to come through. Yep, should have lubed it up, Sean. That's what she said. All right, there we go. Okay, you get it turned around like so. You're going to just take your fingernails on either side and pop that thing through, okay? That's where you tie it on. Again, take this down here, the bottom of that bend, fold your tube over, pop your hook through, and you are weedless, okay? This rig is really cool, but again, you will need to untie, cut your line. You're gonna have to retie to change tubes. However, these are pretty good with not killing your tube real fast. Like this method is probably the quickest. Tubes generally hold up pretty well. This is probably one of the best in my mind. Same thing, right? We're just weedless now. This can be fished either way. It can be fished on a spinning rod. It can be fished on casting. Depending on where you're fishing, what you're fishing for, I can flex that hook pretty decent. I would prefer to fish this rig on a casting rod. When I'm fishing it on a casting rod, that's not the right one. A 733 iRod Gen 2, okay? IRG 733C. It's a heavy, medium heavy, a little dyslexic. 3/16 to 3/8, okay? Those are 3/16 and quarter are the two sizes that I use. 7.3, it's got a good tip on it, okay? Nice absorb, good backbone. I don't want to overpower the hook and risk straightening it out. So I'm going to go with 12 to 14 pound test on this. I don't want to straighten the hook out. No flipping 4 or 5 pounders into the boat. I can always throw that on that iRod Crusher 702 spinning rod, where I'm going to throw 10 pound. Another method that is fairly popular in some areas, I think maybe more with smallmouth people up north. Some places they'll call it snapping a tube. Others they might call it stroking a tube, kind of like stroking a jig. I don't typically do that. I've done it with a jig. You can use the same rig. Some guys like to go real heavy when they do it. Snap it up, right? Snap it up. Stroking it's going to be a little not as fast, I guess, but to me they're essentially the same thing. You're popping that jig up and you're letting it, throwing slack and letting it spiral back down. You're after the reaction bite. When to do that, I would say if you notice that you're getting bit on the fall or right after it hits bottom, that might be a good time to consider snapping a jig or snapping a tube, if you will. So I've heard of people going up as heavy as 3/4 ounce. I'm assuming maybe somebody makes these in a heavier head. You might have to use something different. I don't know. You know, you just watch me try to twist that head, and that was a 3/16. This is a quarter. This is a bigger size. Inside of that tube without lubing, it doesn't rotate very well, okay? So I can't imagine trying to get a real big one in there, but there are some different shapes that maybe you can find to do that with. However, I do believe the quarter would be heavy enough. Otherwise, I can go to a different bait. That's just me. Fishing a tube can be awesome. All right, where am I gonna fish this? I really like the stupid tube for rock piles, rock walls, you know, steep rock walls where you're working it down the wall. And there's a couple of ways you can fish it in those situations. On the steep rock wall, you can kind of swim it so that you're bumping the rocks every once in a while. Swimming it not very fast, okay? You're kind of feeling it. You want it to be brushing the rocks as it goes down. Keep it moving. The other way, of course, is just like you would a jig, which is pull it off, let it fall. Pull it off, let it fall. I talked about in the original one how when you have this bulk plastic around your head, it's very snag proof. The tube offers a lot of plastic to protect that rig from snagging. So this tends to come out of crevices and cracks and snags really, really well. And as you gain a feel for it, you'll really be able to work that bait through stuff and not snag up. The open rig, tapering points, you know, cleaner water, sand bottom. I will throw it in rocks. It snags, you know, I mean, it is what it is. Clay banks, I really like clay banks a lot for that. Humps, you know, you can fish humps with it. Pretty much any of your standard type areas. But if you have the stupid tube, you can fish it in all those areas and not have to keep changing out rigs. Now, when they're really on a tube bite, I might have multiple rods rigged with the tube anyway, so it's not a big deal. And there's times where you want to throw the spinning rod. This rig and a tube, as you can see, if you see the hook point there, the tube collapses easy. It's just that. It's a thin tube and it collapses. You don't have a problem getting a hook in the fish. Tubes are especially effective on smallmouth and spotted bass. However, I've caught a ton of largemouth with tubes, and especially flipping into cover. I talk a lot about fishing something different, something that not everybody else is throwing. A tube is just that. Back in the day when I first got into bass fishing real heavy, I fished the flake right out of the tubes. And that was when the Boom Boom tube came out. That was a huge deal. Unfortunately, it got more people into fishing them, but it was still really good for years. What I can tell you now is that in most areas of the country, outside of smallmouth fishing, tube fishing is just not that popular. It's very inexpensive to fish a tube. It's very effective. It comes through cover really well. It goes down into cover really well, and it just flat catches fish. If you're fishing behind people, a tube can be very, very effective. The Strike King tube, as you look at it, is very unintimidating, if you will. It can be considered a bait fish. It can be considered a craw. Who cares what they think it is? They eat it. I would say when it's dragging, I don't know. I just know they eat it, okay? They eat it. Big fish eat it. Small fish eat it. It's a very, very effective bait. And you can take scent and stuff it up inside. My advice when rigging it with the stupid head or the tube head like we have here is to either put a little bit of scent on the head inside the tube, or you need to lube it up with your mouth, okay? I prefer to use a little bit of scent. It makes it so much easier. The struggles you just saw was with the dry tube, and apparently there's not much oil inside of this Secret Lures. Okay, this is a Secret Lures 3.7, and I believe it's called the Stupid Tube. Yes, it is. It's a good tube. It's thin. This is a really good color. It's called light green pumpkin purple. I like green pumpkin purple. The fish around here like green pumpkin purple. So I'm sorry the video's long. This is what happens when you go down rabbit holes. I still feel like I missed some. Hopefully I gave you more ideas, some rabbit holes to go down. Black Friday sales are going on, folks. It's a good time to pick some of this stuff up. It's affordable. You don't lose a lot of them. If you're fishing the stupid rig, it's you know, they're pretty snag proof. I'm not gonna say completely, call it snag resistant, like water resistant, right? All right, Sean the Average Angler, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe if you like this kind of content, and we'll see you on the next one.